More news, more often. Covering the nation and the world. You're waking up with NewsNet Mornings.
Good morning and welcome back. I'm Victoria Idoni with your headlines for your morning. Here's what's happening this Tuesday. Fires are starting to break out over parts of the Southwest as it gets warmer there. While in the Northwest, they're also experiencing some surprises from Mother Nature. Plus, the U.S. Coast Guard had to step in and help a cargo ship that broke down and was drifting toward Northern California. We've got those stories and more ahead for you. Let's get started. For the first time in recorded history, Portland, Oregon has received a measurable amount of snow in April. 1 inch of snow fell at Portland International Airport, setting a record with the only measurable amount of snow there since the National Weather Service's official record keeping began in 1940. Schools across the region were closed. Some areas about an hour west of Portland received several inches. Utility company Portland General Electric reported more than 55,000 customers were without power across 6 of the state's western counties. Seattle, which is to the north, was also blanketed, and forecasters predict more snow is on the way up on Mount Hood. Strong spring wind is fueling wildfires burning around New Mexico, prompting evacuations south of Albuquerque, where authorities have said some structures have burned and more are being threatened. About 100 firefighters were battling the latest blaze, which was burning out of control and sent up a large plume of smoke that could be seen for miles in the Rio Grande Valley. Valencia County officials called for evacuations in the area and directed residents to a shelter at a nearby community center. In northern New Mexico, outside of Las Vegas, crews were also grappling with the wind as they worked to corral a prescribed fire that had jumped its containment lines last week. A large interagency team of more than 170 firefighters has been put together to assume command, now that more than a square mile is estimated to have burned. Weather forecasters have warned of high fire danger statewide due to gusty wind, dry conditions, and low humidity. The nation's largest utility company, Pacific Gas and Electric, has agreed to a settlement of more than $55 million on a case having to do with 2 major wildfires that are believed to have been sparked by its aging power lines. The company did not acknowledge any wrongdoing when it came to last year's Dixie Fire and the 2019 Kincaid Fire that burned across 6 counties in Northern California. The utility has also agreed to 5 years of oversight in an attempt to prevent future fires. PG&E still faces criminal charges for a 2020 wildfire in Shasta County that killed 4 people. Off the coast of Northern California, about 12 miles from Point Reyes in Marin County, a cargo ship named Wanhai 176 experienced engine problems and wound up being dead in the water. The 564-foot container ship was then unable to properly anchor and began moving closer to shore. A second anchor was successfully deployed, allowing rescuers to send out 3 tugboats to assist the Singapore-flagged vessel, which had 21 people and nearly 800 cargo containers on board. The engines have to be fixed and inspected by the Coast Guard before the big boat can be moved out of the San Francisco Bay. Moving on now to the pandemic. Not only is there no cure for COVID, there's also no cure for boredom. That noise is people screaming and shouting out of frustration from the balconies of one of Shanghai's largest residential compounds. A 5-day lockdown was planned to combat a rise in cases under China's zero COVID policy. That was back on March 28th. Some of the city's 26 million residents have been confined to their homes ever since and aren't allowed to go out and get what they need. The man who filmed this video can be heard saying that within 5 minutes, The entire area was screaming. A similar reaction was heard at another compound earlier this month. The government eased restrictions by announcing residents of areas with no cases for at least 2 weeks can leave their homes starting today. Meanwhile, the U.S. has ordered all non-emergency staff to leave our consulate in Shanghai, which is included in the lockdown. The department also issued a series of advisories for other Americans in China's largest city to help ensure they have the supplies they need in the case of any more unexpected restrictions. For many of those who have recently traveled, it can seem a little strange to have to remember your mask since they're no longer required most places. The CDC could rule in the coming days that the mask order that's set to expire next week shouldn't be lifted due to another round of COVID-19. A lot of people would rather be safe than sorry, but if you're over it, you're not alone. So far, 21 states have sued over the mandate, and a handful of airlines have criticized keeping it as well, largely due to the fact that they're the ones having to deal with the public's reactions. A new study found that babies who were born during the first year of the pandemic are showing developmental disparities from those born in years past. And some experts say they're not surprised.
We were worried that the time away from the public, that time away from school, that time away from family members might be having some impact on children's development. And ultimately, this study has shown us that at least at 6 months, there seem to be some differences in development.
According to the study, the infants scored lower in gross motor, fine motor, and personal social skills. Examples include lifting their head, reaching or grabbing for objects, and interacting with their parents. The study also looked at any possible links between the mother contracting COVID-19 while pregnant and if that could have impacted the infant's development. But there didn't appear to be any association there. Dr. Myers says how these kinds of delays in development could affect a child long-term still needs to be studied. But regardless of whether we're in the throes of a pandemic or not, she stresses the importance for parents to be as involved with their kids as possible, as soon as possible, even at an early age.
One of the best things that we can do for our kids is get down on the floor and play with our kids. We can engage with our kids, be active with them, read them stories, show them everything that we're doing on a day-to-day basis. The more we engage with our children, the more they learn from us.
Around the world, Christians are observing Holy Week, leading up to Easter. In Venezuela, Catholics observed a 200-year-old tradition where the faithful climb a mountain to harvest enough palm leaves to share with the entire village to use for this week's celebrations. It hasn't happened for the past 2 years due to the pandemic, and this year's celebration was described by those present as a renewal of our spirit from the past couple of years, when so many people died due to the virus and the side effects that came with it. Even though that popular Easter tradition is back, some others may be difficult to come by this year. Tolly Anderson explains.
Easter egg hunts will be in effect this weekend, and the price of eggs typically already sees a spike in late March and early April, depending when Easter falls. Where it stands now, large eggs are 44% higher than this time last year. But now, there is another concern. States are getting hit by an outbreak of the bird flu. The virus has been detected in 24 states. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, standard practice is to destroy all infected and exposed birds to stop the spread, meaning there are far fewer egg-laying hens to meet the demand for Easter. Nationwide, the outbreak has affected nearly 18 million commercial table egg-laying hens and nearly 2 million turkeys. But the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said the risk to the general public's health is fortunately very low. Reporting for NewsNet, I'm Tolly Anderson.
Stay with us. Weather, sports, and more are headed your way. With your latest headlines, I'm Victoria Idoni. Have a terrific Tuesday.